Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I need to report now with the benefit of full information available to me on the issue that caused such turmoil in the last council meeting. I was at a disadvantage at that last meeting in a couple ways. Number one, key information had not been made available to me until the very last minute where this report was dropped on us. But also the video record, which I had requested numerous times, had not been provided me as well. I was at a disadvantage in another way. Between our last two council meetings, I had slipped away on a trip to the Midwest to go back and celebrate my mother's 80th birthday and spent some time back there with family. When I arrived at the last council meeting from LAX, just in time for the public session, I was very surprised that there was such a concerted effort to push forward with something that, according to the timetable, looked extremely suspicious. I'm here to report now that I've reviewed the videos of the lobby area, both sets of videos, and I personally find that they do not support the accusations aimed at Mr. Levinson. Because I do believe in fairness and justice, I will not take an action until I'm provided information with which to have a pretty good shot at making the right decision. So one other thing that I have to share, because it is a process, and I've heard this tonight from some of the speakers, I would hope for fairness and even-handedness from the professionals in our city. That's the basis for breeding trust. Trust has to be a two-way street. Before I left on that vacation, I spoke with Chief Hughes in the lobby, basically against the north doors over here. And I was asking him why the investigation was taking so long, that I had been pressing for information, because if there was something with which I needed to consider removing Mr. Levinson, I should be the first one to know that. Back and forth, small talk. Chief Hughes leveled with me on a back and forth. He said, well, you know, when it comes to Levinson, I hate the guy. And everyone's entitled to their own opinion. And if in their exchanges that indeed is his summary of Mr. Levinson, he's entitled to that. But acting as a professional, then imagine my surprise to find out that Chief Hughes apparently was the one who personally called individuals involved in this supposed altercation, and that pretty much initiated the investigation, which led to criminal charges being pressed on, as best as I can tell, name-calling, perhaps, referring to someone as a liar. And then I'm also personally disappointed to find that on the report that was forwarded to the district attorney, that Chief Hughes authored the cover letter to the district attorney's office seeking and recommending criminal prosecution. And to me, that's very disturbing, because the city does have prosecutorial powers. And I was glad to hear some people speak up tonight about the chilling effect of using threats and or intimidation and or even jeopardy of criminal charges to silence people who may be critical here in the public sphere, in the public arena. So I believe that I made absolutely the correct decision in withholding my fire. I have grave doubts now about motives behind this. I could only guess at motives, but I think people looking at this election night certainly have drawn some conclusions and connected some dots. So I appreciate people's comments tonight. I would hope that we could do better. I certainly would never be supportive of actions that even would appear, that would even have the flavor or the scent of something as this episode does. And I would like to encourage people to keep coming and providing commentary at our council meetings, and collectively we will ensure that there's no threat for people to get up and speak their mind.
Thank you, Mr. Whitaker. Chief, did you care to comment?
Well, I would just say that Mr. Whitaker is correct. I did have that conversation with him. However, I do believe you've mischaracterized the contents of that conversation. When I said that, hey, I don't like Mr. Levinson, actually, I could hate the guy. My response was also, Mr. Whitaker, is that, but I don't care what he says. That's not my job. I don't care about politics. That's for all of you guys to deal with. What I'm supposed to do is to document an incident and investigate it. I could care less what he says. I think I told you, normally the more he speaks, the more crazy people are unstable they think that he is. We don't care. That's not the role of your police department. And I believe that is the contents in which we had that conversation, sir. I wasn't just saying that I hate him, so therefore I'm going to document some incident. And so perhaps it's a misunderstanding on your part. I did call individuals because I was the one that was documenting this incident. I don't know, when somebody comes to me and reports something to me, I'm going to certainly contact witnesses to find out whether what they tell me is accurate or not. For you to say that I asked the district attorney's office to file charges, that is not accurate. What it states is that the report is directed to the Investigation Bureau for follow-up investigation into the allegations of Levinson and Gutierrez assaulting and disturbing the peace of victim Grisenti. That is it. I did not ask them to press charges. That's not my role. My role is to document it and then forward it to investigation and submit to the district attorney's office. Your police department is not going to get involved in politics, no matter whether or not you guys ask us to or not. We are going to document incidents, and we're going to submit to the district attorney's office. That's it. And I believe that was the contents in which you're referring to.
Well, Chief, I'm not intending to attack you personally. However, I do have to bring some attention to the notion of professional ethics. And if an officer cannot be objective in their approach to an investigation, it should be assigned to someone who could be objective. Now, you're the chief. You have the discretion. You could assign this investigation any which direction you chose. But given your statements about your feelings about Mr. Levinson, I have some grave concerns about the fact that you did persist to be very hands-on in this investigation, and I would question, at least an open question, about whether that was the best decision.
Thank you, Mr. Whitaker.
And I would just disagree with you, sir. I think that I can be objective in documenting statements that are provided to me, just as when I also have discussions with other people that are suspected of crimes that I might not necessarily like. That's my role, to be objective and to be honest, sir, and that's what I did in this case.
Let's move on. Thank you. We now move to our consent calendar. I've asked that item 7 be pulled so we have a more complete statement as to timing and what else might be happening in that street. Is there any other item that should be pulled this evening?
I'll move the balance.
I'd like to pull number 3 for just a brief comment.
Any other?
And I'll second Greg's motion to...
Except for items 3 and 7 on the consent calendar, those in favor of approving the other 6 items, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Let's move to item 3. Councilmember Flora, your comments.
Item 3 is a first quarter financial report, and I just wanted to know what the status was with respect to our responses, with respect to responses to an RFP for an investment advisor of the city's investment portfolio.
Either Julie James could give you an update on that, or the mayor's been participating, so I'll let the two of them give you the update on that.
The reason I ask is that we made, on our investment portfolio, we made the princely sum of 0.79%, not even 1% interest on a significant portfolio.
Yes, and as I mentioned before, most of the city's portfolios these days are around 0.7%. After your last comment in August, I actually went online and looked at many cities, and they were all either at that point or below us. Not all, but most. In receiving proposals from many investment firms, I also did reference checks and found that those using investment firms also had very similar rates to ours. So it is a sign of the times. It's a sign of just a very low interest rate right now on the Fed side, and as the mayor knows, because he's been sitting in on these meetings, until the Fed changes and the rates start going up, we won't see much of a change. As far as where we are with the proposals, the Investment Advisory Committee is meeting tomorrow to, we conducted in the last few weeks 6 interviews with different firms. We're meeting tomorrow to finalize and choose one that we will make a recommendation to council. We hope to bring that at the next meeting at the earliest and at the latest by December.
And tomorrow will be my 7th meeting on this topic. And I would say that since investments have been rolled over since you've taken over that chore, when you've reinvested, you have been able to